Wild game continues to be one of the healthiest meat choices available. It's lean, it's chemical-free, it's high-quality meat. To help you get the most of your next big game hunt, we're going to show you a particularly efficient method of field dressing your animal. This method is popular with many experienced big game guides and hunters. It minimizes waste and makes transporting your meat as efficient as possible, as it allows you to leave all the rib bones and the entire spine at the kill site. And this method works with all big game, sheep, caribou, or moose. We're going to demonstrate with a bison. Because of their size, a few extra considerations are involved when field dressing a bison, but the basic principles and steps you will see apply with any big game species.
Those things you want to do, if you can, is either dig a hole here or kick it in the snow so the hump goes in when you lift it up. That's different than a moose.
This groove or depression will make things much easier when it comes to rolling the animal over, as you will be required to roll it over a number of times. And before the first cut is made, you should make considerations for the hide, depending on what you plan to do with it.
Okay, so what we're doing, Niels isn't certain what he wants to do in the future with the hide, because it's very expensive to get him out. So we're going to skin the whole animal out so that he can either get a rug made out of it, just having it tanned, or he can go get the taxidermist to make a shoulder mount out of it. So he'll be able to choose in the future, but the way we're doing it now will allow him to do either thing.
A hide removed in one piece provides the most options for later use.
I'll get this arm down a little bit, and then I can come out.
See, do I do
Some blocks, maybe. He wants to fall back.
It is a legal requirement to show evidence of sex of the animal. Leaving it attached to some part of the meat is one easy way to do this.
The evidence of sex. Later, when you're required to leave the evidence, proof of sex attached to the animal, this is what you'd have to, one of the choices you'd have is to leave the scrotum attached to the quarter when you take it off.
I don't cut that off now in case urine would leak onto the meat. Cut it off later.
You want to roll it again?
Antlers or horns attached to the skull may also qualify as legal evidence of sex, but they may also be more difficult to pack out.
Oh, yes. Tough hide, especially around the neck.
I think that's the first shot.
It's like an old bull moose.
On the river.
As skinning progresses, make sure to keep the hide stretched out under the carcass. It works just like a tablecloth to keep the work area relatively clean.
Well, it's important to get the hide off very quickly because the animal is so hot and the hide is so thick and the hair is so thick on it that high quality insulation. And in Alaska, they've told us that they've had meat spoilage at 30 below zero because the person didn't get the hide off quickly enough. So that's one of the first things you got to get right at. Get your pictures taken and then get the hide off it. You'll see when we open it up and start taking the hunks of meat off it 3 or 4 hours after the animal's been shot, the meat's still steaming when it comes off.
Now you're ready to remove the top side legs.
First, the animal's on its right-hand side, and we take the left front and left hind leg off. Then we flip it over and do the same on the animal's left side.
Whereabouts are you going to cut it?
We're going to locate the ball joint in the back leg and cut the meat and keep the sirloin area on the back leg. And it's best if you have one person to help. pushing up and just gentle pressure.
You're cutting along the pelvis toward the ball and socket joint at the hip.
And you're cutting close to the pelvis so you don't waste the meat. And there's the ball joint there. And once you get through the ball joint, it does fall apart pretty nice.
Now, Dan, you suggest just dragging it over in the snow?
Yep.
Or,
Just gently lay it down, and then we can put a tarp under there
okay.
so it doesn't hit the ground.
You'll continue your cut through to the top of the pelvis until the leg is completely severed.
And you have to be careful here, because you can cut into the pelvis and puncture the bladder. And we don't want to do that. And that's the sirloin on top.
The front leg is a little easier. You're slicing through the meat from the armpit to the shoulder. There is no bone-to-bone connection in the front shoulder.
Do these have any kind of scent glands you gotta get rid of?
No.
Once it is separated, ensure you can set it aside without getting the meat dirty. You must now make a choice. You can leave the guts in place till later and remove all the meat available, or you can remove the guts now. There is a risk of spilling gut contents and ruining meat, so some hunters prefer to leave the guts intact till later. But with a bison, early removal of the gut mass can lighten the job somewhat. That's the method we'll demonstrate now.
To take the guts out by removing a chunk of the flank and hopefully get the whole paunch out intact. So right now you can see it's under a lot of pressure, and if the bullet hasn't punctured the paunch, we don't want to do it with our knife. And I'm cutting just along the rib line. Down to the base of the brisket.
Critical at this stage is control of the depth of your cut. You don't want to puncture the stomach or intestines. Finally, a small cut where the diaphragm joins the ribs is where you want to enter the stomach cavity.
That's the stomach, and you don't want to puncture that. So when you cut now, you have to protect it with your hand.
When the cut is completed on both sides, you can start to remove the stomach. That's done mostly by hand. You're trying to keep the stomach intact while separating it from the rib cage. A puncture could spill stomach contents and spoil meat.
And really, you're just pushing and rolling the paunch.
Okay.
And as you look up here, you'll see the esophagus. Okay, that's the esophagus, okay, right here. And of course, it's full of stomach contents. And if we choose to pierce it, we have to be careful not to spill it. Okay, see, that's the esophagus. Everything's clean until you cut that. To stop any stomach contents from spilling after I cut it.
Any kind of string works?
Yeah, just a piece of string you don't mind wasting. Okay, now I'll cut it of course, on my side. Okay, and then you see I'm not going to let go of that. If I let go of that, it'll spill all over here. Okay, I need a helper.
I'll be a helper.
Put your hand right over mine. Right in there, dig deep in, right in. Okay, and pull, just gently.
Oh, that's what?
Just keep pulling. You might even be able to pull it right out. And the other guys can help them kind of roll it away.
Just keep pulling, or?
If they can.
Is this not hard? Wow.
Okay. And of course, this is the other end, the lower intestine.
And lunch.
You don't want to get any feces on your meat, okay? So that's pretty secure there.
Now you're ready to remove the backstrap.
So we're going to take the backstrap
The
off
cut
by cutting
should
along
be
the
made
side of the
along the backbone to the pelvis.
right back here to the pelvis.
Fairly hard to cut, Larry, or?
No. It's got lots of bones in there, and you just want to try to get inside the bones, and you need a fairly flexible knife.
Oh, that's gonna be good eating. It goes from here to here? Yeah, it's fat though. Good eating. Tenderloin's best. Do we use the meat on the, Yeah. on the calf? Yeah. Really soft.
Right on.
Cool.
That's good.
So that's the backstrap.
That's the best.
I'll try to fillet out the neck here a bit.
I don't think he'd like. Those guys haven't come back yet. Look at his ribs, man. They're like. Just like those weird ones. There's still the backstrap. No. Is there still backstrap there? I don't think so. He's just cutting up the neck. Spaghetti. It's pretty easy field dressing when there's lots of people.
So there's the neck slab. That isn't all of it, because we've got some here too, and we'll take that off.
What's this on the hump area there? Wait, no, never mind.
Now you're stripping slabs of meat off the rib cage. With a good sharp knife, it should come off pretty quickly. The meat is excellent for burgers, stews, or sausage meats. With a bison, you're going to get quite a large amount.
Oh, kid, those are big ribs. Like my arm. What?
Now, we're going to take the meat out from between the ribs.
Deboning the ribs is a field dressing option that may come in very handy on a backpack hunt, or any time weight restrictions are a factor. By stripping off the meat, you can leave the massive rib bones behind.
Broke a rib?
Of course, if transporting the meat is not an issue, you may want to just take the ribs out in one big piece.
You wouldn't do this with snowmobiles and a bison because you can carry it all. So we'll only do this to one side.
We have removed the other side of the ribs intact, but as you can see, deboning the ribs on site can be a very efficient way to retrieve all the meat. The amount of meat here varies among species, but it's a requirement that all the meat be taken.
If this was a smaller animal, or sheep, or caribou, or something like that, it doesn't have this high hump, but I filleted right along to the front of the hump and then made a cut down right here along the tops of the ribs so that I got a triangular piece of meat out of here, and that's a very tender piece of meat, backstrap. It's the large part of a T-bone steak is the backstrap. And I'm just going to cut some more meat off here because there's more meat available. And this is what you can do after you take the backstrap off. You can go back along with a sharp knife and cut the bits and pieces of meat off, and they can all go in the burger bin or the stew bin or something like that.
We're down to the most choice cuts now.
We're taking the tenderloin out.
You guys are asking about the tenderloin. Larry's taking the tenderloin out. One of two. You mean meat-wise? They've never used their muscles, so there's no development in the muscles.
This needs to be trimmed, but there's the tenderloin out of one side. That's a very, very tender piece of meat.
Now that you've removed all the major cuts, you can always do one last search for pieces of meat you may have missed. All these small bits are perfect for stew meat or ground up to make a variety of exotic dishes. Kluani meatballs, buffalo meat pie, sausages, jerky, or it can be mixed with other meat to make a special burger dish. What you're left with is a perfectly cleaned carcass, just the bones. And this field dressing technique works exactly the same for all big game animals. It is extremely efficient for a sheep hunt that may take you to an extremely remote location. With all the meat removed from the bones, your hike back to camp is much more manageable, and you can be confident you've maximized use of the meat. With all big game, you are required to pack out all the meat. This method allows you to leave all the bones behind. And of course, you've got the heart and liver. You would have taken them out after you removed the stomach and guts. This technique is just one of many popular methods of field dressing big game animals, but it offers the hunter one of the most efficient methods of retrieving all the valuable meat from the hunt, while minimizing extra weight that needs to be packed out. For more information on this field dressing method, contact Yukon Renewable Resources.